All right, so 3 big ideas for today is the last one is that you can master the case study if given you don't have a business background. So a couple of questions today. So these are the 3 big ideas that we have for today. That consulting is for you if you enjoy learning at a fast pace. You can get your foot in the door and you can master the case interview. So again, my goal to you today at the beginning of the day was a couple of things. One, I wanted you to be comfortable to knowing if consulting is the career path that you want to take. Second is I wanted you to believe that if consulting is what you want to do, that it's totally possible to get your foot in the door, even if you don't come from a target school, you don't have a brand name, you don't have a perfect GPA, or you don't have business experience. It's very possible. And you saw so many examples today. And third, you can learn how to master the case interview. So if you decide that consulting is for you, you're like, Davis, I believe that I can get my foot in the door, even though I don't have a business experience, but I'm scared to fit or scared of the case interview and to fit. Hopefully you realize that the case interview and the fit interview are completely learnable. It is something that you can learn how to master and how to master it very well. So this is something that you can do on a very regular basis. All right, so we started today with 3 goals. I want you to think about yourself, did we achieve these goals, what we were after? So I want you to ask yourself, did you get closer to knowing if consulting is a career path that you want to pursue or not? Second, do you believe more that you're able to have a career in consulting by just getting your foot in the door, even if right now you're self-employed, right now if you're a pre-med student, right now if you're a PhD, if you're a postdoc, that it is very possible to get your foot in the door without a brand name on your resume or a perfect GPA or the most ideal business experience. And third, do you feel now that the case interview process is actually very learnable and that it's something that you can master with the right type of practice and the right type of mindset? And hopefully the answer you answered to all of these is yes. All right, so hopefully the answer to the question is, did today help you out today? But remember, the information is not enough. You need to act on it. So as a result, where do you go from here? So for many of you, this is the beginning of your career in exploring, or for some of you that you've emailed me, this is the beginning of your exploration. You're only a couple of years into your PhD, you still have a lot to go, or you're an undergrad with a couple of years as well. So I want you to think about what is your path. And there's a lot of things that you can do, but what I want you to do is use the information today to make the decisions of why you came on. So obviously you spent today with me because you wanted to know, 1, is consulting for you? And 2, how do you get into it? So you have the information here, and it's all about starting to act on this information. But I have a question for you. I'd love to get to chat here. Is it okay for me to give you a little bit more help? So as I mentioned earlier today, there is a bonus for attending. So I'd love to know if you guys would like to know what this is and what you're getting for attending today and making it to the end. We have a question here. Anna, yes. Yeah, awesome. All right, question before we start. If interviewers ask you, let's see. If interviewers ask you a behavioral question that you have not experienced and you are not prepared, how should you address it? Remember, A-STARE format is essentially how you do it. So if they ask you for something that you have not experienced and you're not prepared for, still think about it, because usually for the behavioral interviews, they're still going to ask you very common themes of questions. So as long as you prepare for the big 8 questions that we talked about, you'll be able to answer other questions because you can recycle the stories over and over and over again for those. Again, of course, no problem. Nathan, I saw that you just messaged me. Yep, of course, you guys are getting the slides for this, so it's going to be fantastic when you have these to digest more. So let me tell you a little bit more, and then I have a surprise for you guys at the end of this. But first, before that, I want to share a little bit more. Is that you guys already know that my path wasn't very clean when I was trying to get into consulting. But for all the clients that we've ever worked with, I wanted to make sure that they had a clear path towards how to get a consulting offer. Like many of the people that you saw today, I wanted them to be able to know that there's a clear structured process for if consulting is the career that you want to do, that there is a clear path forward. So you're probably wondering, and how do we actually get this 90% average when everyone else gets like 1% or 10%? So I'm actually going to reveal the secret about how we do it step by step. And then we'll talk into a little surprise for you guys. So what's the secret? So this is the secret here, is that we give a lot of support. So what happens is when someone begins to work with us, the very first thing that ever happens is they have a one-on-one strategy call with a former recruiter so they can see if consulting is the right career for them. And then from there, they can get a personalized role plan for how to get them from wanting to be in consulting to actually passing it. So first one-on-one session. After the strategy session, what ends up happening is we need to start getting the work done. So people get access to an insider boot camp so they can discover a process of how to get an interview and pass it. So imagine what we had today. So if you guys found today was helpful, imagine today, but think about it as even more information. So we go deeper into each of the section, deeper into the resume, deeper into the cover letter, deeper into the case interview, deeper into each of the fit questions. And that's pretty much what they do. So after their strategy session, after they've had access to the boot camp where they can learn everything similar to today, the next thing that happens, and this is the insider of the boot camp, the next thing that happens is they get a rubric for how resumes are scored. So they can actually go through line by line and just compare their own resume to how consulting firms like McKinsey, Bain, and BCG score their resume. So this is what you guys saw earlier, and this is what people have a chance to do when they have it. So you saw that Cynthia was able to use this to land interviews. You saw that all the RM was doing, so many people were able to do this. And this is what we do. So you have the checklist. So what happens next? So you have your strategy session, you find out the consulting's for you, you have access to insider bootcamps, you learn how to get an interview and how to pass it. And you even have a rubric for how the interviews are scored. Then to save you time is you get a list of all the common case types so you can master the case interview in less time without wasting any effort. So similar to what we talked about before is instead of trying to copy Case in Point or Victor Chang or any other case book, just go straight to the source and think about what are some of the most common types of cases that you're going to encounter so that you can actually just prepare for those. And then finally, after that, after you go through the strategy session, after you have the boot camp, after you have the resume, the rubric for the resumes, after the common cases, you finally get to work a recruiter on the team one-on-one on your resume and your cover letter. So this is probably one of people's favorite parts about working with us is that depending on who you are and where you want to apply, I want to make sure that we emphasize your strengths, identify and address the weaknesses, and just have an insider to navigate the entire process with. So a lot of people over time, our company started 2 years ago in just the United States when I was just specializing in San Francisco and LA. But over time, we grew it. So for example, if you're someone who is trying to apply and you want to work in, let's say, Singapore, you would work with someone on my team who used to be the manager spent 8 years there at McKinsey for Singapore. So literally the person who was in charge of your application. So imagine if you were trying to go to Harvard Business School and having someone who was the former head of Harvard Business School admissions work with you on your application. They'll be able to help you with your strengths, identify the weaknesses, as well as talk to you through all the areas where you could be lost. And so we pretty much do this because my team, we have a total of 26 people. This is just 6 people who I wanted to show today. They have expertise from all around the world. For example, you have someone who was the head of UK recruiting for McKinsey for 22 years, head of Bain Canada recruiting for 10 years, McKinsey Singapore recruiting, Boston and New York, San Francisco and Chicago, 18 years at Kuala Lumpur. So between all the firms, we've been pretty lucky that we've been able to specialize the help that we get to people. And this is why we get one of our high success rates, being able to get the interview for people. As you mentioned earlier, for a firm like McKinsey, they only take like 10% of the people who apply to them. So that's our secret, is basically having someone who uses screen resumes to work with you. So now that you've had your strategy session, you know how to get an interview and how to pass it from the boot camp, the rubric, you have the common cases, you have a former recruiter work with you one-on-one your application, answer any questions you have, no matter how dumb it is, or you think it's dumb. There's no dumb questions here. The next thing is you need to pass the interview. So what I do is I pair you up with someone on the team who's a former interviewer at Bain, McKinsey, or BCG, or any firm that you're applying to. We have the expertise. So you can actually master the case interview and behavioral in the shortest time possible. You don't waste time. And of course, there's no limit on the session. So you remember, this is Tanya. So Tanya got her McKinsey offer 2 weeks ago. And this is one of her sessions that she started. She started working with us. This is February 22nd. So she worked with us for about a month and got her offer. But you notice that this is her first session, and she and her coach Gody went to 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's insane. So if you remember my very first case, it was a simple bridge case about raising prices, and it took me about 2 hours to do it. So eventually, like Lindsay, when you saw her, it took her about 13 minutes to solve the case. A lot of our clients, Lindsay included and Tanya here, and when they first begin, they just suck at case, and you're in phase 1, so you just suck. And so for my coaches, I make sure that you are able to finish the case and you're able to get feedback on the case, as well as a plan for you how to improve your weaknesses. So oftentimes the cases will go over, but we make sure that our whole entire team is super patient with you when that happens. So that's what happens. You have the strategy session with your former recruiter, so you know if consultants for you, build a roadmap. access to the insider boot camp. You have a rubric for how all the resumes are scored, a list of the common case types, a former recruiter work with you one-on-one on your resume and cover letter, and actually an interviewer to be able to give you mock interviews. So I literally want no excuses for why you don't have the support in order to do it. And then finally, for those who live in more strange places, or they are working professionals who don't have access to case partners, everyone gets added to our Facebook group. And our Facebook group, this number is even outdated, is over 190 people. And you can see here, there are people who are continuously getting, so Tobias is one person who got an offer, and then Chenbin before that got an offer as well. But the community is where you find case partners as well as share success stories in terms of what you're able to do. So there should be no excuses. So you have a strategy session, so you know if consulting is for you or not, and have any questions answered. You have access to the insider boot camp, so you know what to do to get an interview and pass it. The rubrics for how things are scored, common case types, so you know how to avoid common mistakes. You have a former recruiter literally work with you one-on-one on your application, so you know you're not making the same mistakes that other candidates would make. You have a former interviewer who's giving you mock cases, so you know what an actual interview is like. And then you have access to this private community group. And that's pretty much how we're able to get such a success rate in terms of it. Like I mentioned, there's nothing for me to sell because no one can enroll into our program without going through an application and interview process. But I just wanted to share with you the system that we have in terms of how we're able to get people into interviews in like a 90% success rate. And it's basically all the things that I wish I had when I was recruiting. And that's pretty much my motivation for sharing it, because I usually get asked that question. So, well, I was wondering, would having all this help you? Hopefully, all you guys are nodding your head. So, because you're all here and because you are stayed till the end, I have a bonus for you since you guys are among here. Your bonus for being here is that I know a lot of you guys are going through the process and you're still figuring out, is consulting for you? And if awesome, thumbs up, I like it. I know a lot of you guys are going through the process and trying to determine if consulting is for you, or if you're worried about your resume, or you're worried about your casing. So one of the things is that I love meeting people one-on-one. So what I want to do is set you up with a one-on-one strategy session with either myself or someone on the team to make sure that you have a good place. So it doesn't matter if you're just starting your journey. You're like, Davis, I just have a couple questions about, as an experienced hire, what are my chances and so forth? Or if I'm self-employed, how do I do this? Is it possible for me? Am I wasting my time? Is it a pipe dream? So I want to make sure that at least at the very beginning, you're on the way to getting your journey. So I'll show you guys how to schedule this one-on-one session for making it this far. So congratulations on that, to be able to have that session. So I'll show you guys in a bit how to do that. But there's more. I love surprising people. Is that after the strategy session, no matter where you are in the process, I also want to make you sure that you have a rubric for how your resumes are scored, so that if you're worried that you don't have the correct experience because you're a pre-med or you're a postdoc or so forth, I actually want you to go through and have your resume and go through and see if you have everything that's clean and there. So pretty cool for you to actually have that. And then I also want you to have a list of the common case types, so that once you begin the case interview process, you're going to feel supported as well. And just so that when you start working with your case partners, you're not just trying to get one in the dark. These are the 3 things I wish I had when I first started working out in consulting, or recruiting, just because it would have helped me with a lot more direction in terms of what I'm doing. So this is why I'm giving it here, because like I said, yeah, my treat for you guys being on this call and enduring everything and just making it through today on a Sunday. So this is super awesome, guys. And so how to access the bonuses while they're still up, super easy, is I'm going to type this into the box as well. But basically, if you go to this URL, so unfortunately, you can't click the screen. So that's one of the downsides of this platform. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually happen to have a Q&A session right now. And what I want you guys to do is, for anyone who wants to claim it, you just go to the link. Again, if you decided that consulting is not for you, totally fine. Well, thanks for sticking out. But I'm going to type this up into the chat box for everyone to fill up. And then what I'm going to do is leave this up for a little bit. And before I dismiss everyone, so it seems like we had a great time today, I just want to answer any questions you guys have that's still remaining about the recruiting process. So I'm going to be here while you guys can feel free to fill out the application now, or while there's still spots. I think there's still a couple spots down there for speaking for the next couple of weeks. But wanted to answer any questions you guys have so far. So first off, thanks for coming out here today, and just glad you guys found today's presentation to be super helpful. But before we dismiss, and I'm going to talk to you guys one-on-one at some point, as long as you claim the bonus, I want to see if there's any questions that you guys have that I can answer for you. Oh, wow, you guys are great. Can you go through the application process for my program? So the application process is, well, the application process, we talk about that more on the one-on-one call. But basically, there's an application I have everyone fill out. So the application you're filling out right now on the bonus is part of the larger application, but it's just the questions I need for the free session that you're going to have. But we can definitely talk about more about it on the one-on-one chat. But pretty much there's 4 things I'm looking for, and there are some things I'm not looking for. So let's talk about the things I'm not looking for. So I don't need you to have a brand name on your resume. I don't need you to have been a very serious case, or you don't have to have like 50 cases already done. You don't have to have the most compelling hero story and so forth. What I'm looking for is 4 things. One, do you have potential to be a consultant? So obviously, for example, if your whole career is, let's say, working at Walgreens and being a store clerk, I can't really help you there. Second is I want to know if you are hardworking. As in, again, I can teach you all this stuff, but if you're not hardworking and you don't have the work ethic, I can't do anything. And third, do you believe in yourself? As in, you saw the email that I got a question about, he's like, he knew he had everything except for the belief in himself. I can't work with you if you don't believe in yourself. So I can give you the tools, but you need to believe you can actually do it. Again, the analogy is that I don't want to be in the car with you if you believe as a driver you're going to crash the car every single time. And then finally, the last thing I look for is the financials. And don't worry, as you guys already know, you're about to career in consulting makes you, let's say, on average, roughly from our estimations, about $5 million more than average. So don't worry, the fee is not $5 million or anything like that. It's actually a pretty low amount compared to that. But we'll get to that once we are there. So basically, as long as you meet all those 4 requirements, that's how the application works on the interview. And given because you're on this call, most likely I'll be the one doing the interview versus my team, just because I know a lot more about you guys through the emails we've exchanged as well as the questions you've asked here. So you can do it an advantage that I am pretty soft on it. All right, question here is, yes, okay, so positions about data science in consulting firms in MBB, and is there a future in this? Yes, so absolutely, growing field. Like I mentioned, BCG is fairly heavily invested in this with what they call their BCG Gamma program. So we actually have a lot of clients who are data science majors or data analytics majors, and basically their goal is to be able to get into one of the big 3, but in the big data or analytics field. So each of the firms has one. So for McKinsey, they call it Quantum Black. For BCG, it's called BCG Gamma. And for Bain, so Bain technically has 2. Bain has one called Bain Adapt and Bain Advanced Analytics. And we work with pretty much all of them. So we have clients at each of those. So the short answer is, the insight is that the interview process is very similar with one exception. So you still do the fit interview, you still do the case interview. But the one thing that you also have to do is a technical interview, which is a project about how to do and work with data and present it. So they do this because obviously you're going to be a data scientist, so you need to be able to do that work. So that's the technical side of it. And this position is going to continue to grow. Sometimes people joke that this role is actually going to replace a lot of the associates and the analysts and the consultants in many years from now once that process happens. So it's pretty much they're grabbing it for the group. So it's a fantastic company if you get a chance to do it. So that's the answer to the data science question with these consulting firms. And they do look for people with a engineering background, ideally in analytics or a computer science background for those positions. So they're great positions to be in. And yeah, so there's some of the people who we work with are some of the smartest people. I didn't include them on the presentation today because, again, I wanted to show you examples of people who are more common, and the people who typically get the roles at the data analytics team, they're pretty much some of the smartest clients I have ever had. Awesome, guys. Any other questions? Question coming in. Okay. Great. So question is that, so since it was messaged privately, I won't say who it is, but okay. So the question was, this person has a degree, has about a couple of years of experience, but is right now in a school program that has a recruiting effort. So do you go through the recruiting process or the experience hire route? Short answer is go through whenever you can, go through the school route, because there's a clear path. 3 things. 1, you get clear access to resources and recruiters, so you'll have access to all these events. Second is that your application is going to be reviewed by people at your school, so that's another advantage. And the third is that there's a clear deadline for it versus experienced hires where you might submit it, but you might not get it reviewed for like months, versus the campus recruiting, which is you're gonna get reviewed because there's a start date and an end date to campus recruiting that they have every single year. So hopefully that answered that question on that one, but short answer is on-campus recruiting always is better than off-campus recruiting when you happen. But if you don't have access to a school, it doesn't mean that it's impossible for you to get into consulting. All right, guys, let me know if there's any other questions. Yeah, of course, glad to answer any questions. Awesome. All right, so it sounds like there's no more other questions. You guys already know how to claim the bonus there, as in the slides will come out. So the next steps for me is I'm gonna go ahead and download the video and then upload it as a whole, put it on the site. And I'll probably just put the PDF on that website as well. And then from there, I'll send you guys the link to the site. It should be up. So I'm flying out of New York, so it should be up next weekend at the latest if everything goes well for Memorial Day weekend. But I'll send you guys out as soon as possible, and you guys will get first priority just given the fact that you guys are on the call today. So if I don't currently have your email, then and you weren't registered through the event, then well, I need to figure out a way. But you guys have everything you need, and then every other thing that I want you guys to make sure that you guys do also is just claim the bonus whenever you have a chance. And then other follow-up question that's also another private is, okay, so same person from before, is that on-campus recruiting may target more junior levels while more experienced hires may be higher level. Thoughts on that? My thought is it doesn't really matter, because on campus is going to get you a lot faster. And also second, remember in consulting, you get a very fast promotion window. So if you perform very well, you're going to get promoted really quickly. So for example, one of the team members on our coaching staff, she started off at the entry level of McKinsey and eventually became a engagement manager within less than 3 years. And she was just promoted really fast every 6 months. So I think she was at one point one of the youngest engagement managers in McKinsey's history. So that was a tracker. So her salary for her first year and 2 years later were like so different. So I wouldn't worry about going in as a junior or a senior. And also when you get an offer, you'll have a chance, assuming that you have the right experience, and they'll tell you if you should enter at a higher level in terms of it. So for example, during my Bain class, there was one person who was 28. When I started, I was 21, 22. I got 22. And someone, he was 28. The reason is that he started school and then took a break to do work and then came back to finish his undergrad. And so he was 28. So when he was promoted, or he was accepted to Bain with me, so we both started in the same training and everything, but he was on a faster trajectory because he had just had more work experience. So they were able to do it. So I wouldn't worry about junior role versus more senior role, because you're going to get there so fast. As in 6 months to 2 years doesn't really make a huge difference in consulting, because you're going to accelerate there. But what does make a difference is that if you think you can get in as an experienced hire, you can, and we'll talk more about it. But if the hardest thing is being able to just get that interview. So any way you can to get that interview, you should definitely get that interview. Okay, let's see. Got it. Okay, so 2 questions, one privately, one not. Is there an age limitation? Short answer is no. Longer answer is it depends on the role. But for example, we've had people who are 28 and so enter at the very lowest level. I think the highest I've seen, actually, he was the highest I've seen. He was 28, turning 29, I believe. And that was the highest age limitation I have seen. And then we've had people who came in. So one of my favorite partners at Bain, she actually had an entire career before going to business school and then getting on off-campus recruiting, but she was in her mid-30s, I believe, when she started her career in consulting. So there's no hard and fast age limitation, but obviously you can't be like 58 starting a 21-year-old's job. So there's no hard and fast rule on that one. And then question is, can I talk about the freezing period for MBB if you fail during the interview? Yes, so the freezing period, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So freezing period, what that means is that when you apply to McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and you, let's say, don't make it, there's what's called a freezing period. It means you cannot apply again, so you're frozen. The reason this happens is that they don't want you to apply every single day that you fail, so every month you're interviewing. So that's the purpose of the freezing period. And for each of the firms, it varies. So on average, it's between 6 months and 1.5 years. And they will tell you what that freeze period is. So this is only for mainly experienced hires. If you're in school, the freeze period is much less, because you're a school, you have multiple opportunities. But if you're out of school, the freeze period will depend. It could be, if you're really good, it could be as short as 6 months. Sometimes partners will make exceptions as shorter, but usually it's about a year that you can apply again. All right. Guys, this has been fun. Let me know if there's any other questions before I let you guys have this beautiful day back in the city. Awesome, everyone. Well, it's great getting to know every single one of you guys. And for those of you who decide to claim the bonus, I'll get to know you a lot more on our call as well. So I'm super excited to see where everyone's paths are headed. You have my email, and then I'll send another follow-up email on this, as well as next week when all the videos are downloaded and on our webpage. So I'm super excited to see all the paths, and want to wish you guys the best luck in your journeys, regardless if we work together or not. And beyond that is that just the fact that you stood out today means that I can tell that consulting is something that you really do care about. And it is, as you can see from the stories, really life-changing in terms of what you can do for your own career. So I want to wish you guys a great weekend and have a great one. Oh man, thanks for the kind words, guys. As in, oh man, I gotta screen some of this. This is awesome. I appreciate it, everyone. So awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. So super excited for everyone. And then we'll stay in touch in terms of what happens next, because really excited for you guys. Reach out anytime you guys need help or anything else like that. But other than that, wishing you guys a great day on this beautiful day. Man, I wish it's always this sunny in New York City. All right. Oh man. Thanks, guys. All right, guys. Have a great one, guys.
Enjoy time in New York.
Will do. As in, hopefully I'll be able to see you guys in person next time with the new arrangement, or worst case, I'll just see you guys on the one-on-one calls.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you guys.